It's Season 2 of Another Point of View with your host, Mr. Gerald Lord. No flashy wordplay today, folks. Not after the past couple of days I've had. So, happening now. Sort of. I was going to discuss a topic that's still been making headlines and currently developing, but a recent event in my personal life this past Friday made me reconsider it. So, I guess Panama Papers will just have to wait. So folks, here's the story. I'm on my way home from having a meal when all of a sudden I'm approached by an individual in what appears to be a mechanic's outfit. He asks me if I speak English. I respond, yes. He tells me a story about how he needs money to get on the bus to get to the next city and asks me for whatever I can spare. Now, before I tell you my response to his request, allow me to explain that this is not the first time I've seen the man in that exact same attire give me that exact same story and ask me for money in the past 2 months. So my response is, well, before I do, I'm going to need some backstory here, because this is the 5th time I've seen you in 1 month, and it's been the same story each time. So do you have some kind of issue with public transportation? His response, a proud one at that, was as follows. No, man. You see, the thing is, I just made $100 in the last 3 hours. How much do you make per day? You see, most people work per hour. I work by the second. And in reality, this is all just a joke to me, why I do all this. He then started to walk away before turning around and deciding to contradict himself by saying, but yeah, you keep saying no, and be on your way. You know, you're supposed to pay it forward and pass the baton of love around for good things to come back your way, but go ahead and have a pleasant weekend. My expression was that of stern disapproval the moment he admitted he was basically lying, and was not in any way in real need of money. Had I the time that day, I would have truly given him the verbal thrashing he deserved for his dishonorable actions. But having my own personal situation to deal with at the time, on that day in particular, I decided to simply say sarcastically, thank you, and then continued on my way. The subject of this segment, in case you haven't picked up from that story, is panhandling. More specifically, aggressive panhandling. You see, folks, I do believe in helping those less fortunate than us. Honestly, I do. But it is individuals like the person I encountered on Friday, referred to as aggressive panhandlers, who unfortunately put them in a negative light. It is because of aggressive panhandlers that there are actually advocates in favor of laws making begging in public illegal and punishable by law. There are actually laws against panhandling in parts of some countries like the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, South Africa, Finland, and Romania, and probably others. These laws tend to face opposition due to the fact that they aim to discourage panhandlers but also hurt people who are actually poor and in need of assistance. I can honestly say I am currently not in favor of such laws. Poverty is indeed a real thing, and there are people out there who honestly do need a helping hand. The problem with poverty is that it's a genuinely difficult problem to address. How do you know the person begging on the streets is genuinely poor and that your charity isn't going to be used to fuel, let's say, an addiction rather than to be used to buy a meal? How do you know that small donation you're making to a non-profit organization is actually going towards the problem you're trying to fix? These are valid questions for someone to have. Going beyond the questions of how, there is also the question of who. Some would argue it is the responsibility of the state to address the issue of poverty, and that the burden of helping those less fortunate shouldn't fall on average citizens. Others would argue that neither the state nor another person should feel obligated to help the poor. Some take that argument even further and say the poor are poor because of their life choices and are deserving of their fate. There's also the question of effectiveness in giving charity, as far as whether it provides a long-term solution. The old Chinese proverb, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, comes to mind. That brings me to the second half of the proverb. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. It's a sound concept overall, then rather than seeking to provide a short-term solution that is only sustainable as long as there are people willing to give charity, whereas giving the poor the opportunity to improve their situation through hard work and employment to earn their own income to support themselves is a long-term solution. And there are non-profits out there who do this sort of thing. The problem is, this solution, like all the others, has its flaws. Not all the people in poverty are suitable for work, for instance. But the point I'm trying to make is, poverty and homelessness is not going to have a one-size-fits-all solution. Or rather, not a humane one at least. Technically, killing the poor would be a one-size-fits-all solution to poverty, and as sad as it is to say, that has gained traction at times throughout history. But, let's be honest, that is not a moral solution to the problem. It is a terrible one. Listeners, what I'm trying to say is I don't have all the answers, and I will admit that. But going back to the person I encountered on Friday, because I didn't really address you on Friday, you, sir, are the scourge of the earth, and represent nothing but the bad in people. You prey on those who seek to do good in this world, take advantage of the generosity and sympathy of people who want to make this world better, and do so for your own personal gain. Someone like you genuinely makes me ill. And for many, encountering you would probably cause others to become cynical with the concept of helping those who they perceive to be less fortunate through charity. But mark my words, someday you will get what's coming to you. Just know that I will continue to have hope and compassion for those of us who are less fortunate, despite encountering someone like you. And I encourage listeners, as I've encouraged them before, never lose hope in others, and never stop fighting to make a difference in helping those suffering from poverty. Alright, let's progress on to the next segment. Nature hates us. Tigers. They are the largest cat species currently known to man. I'm going to be honest, the tiger is a natural carnivore that I greatly respect. I also think they look a hell of a lot cooler than lions. Despite my admiration for their power and appearance though, I would rightfully exhibit extreme caution if I were ever around one. Make no mistake about it, these are dangerous creatures, not to be trifled with. Which brings me to the very unfortunate story from yesterday. Meet delightful zookeeper and fellow admirer of tigers, Stacy Conweiser, who works at the Palm Beach Zoo and Conservation Society, located in the U.S. state of Florida. She was known for her talents at handling and working with 4 Malayan tigers. Before going into the story further, I feel it important to tell you, tigers are ranked in conservation status currently as endangered. There are an estimated 3,890 individual tigers left in the world, according to a global census in 2016. These magnificent creatures could very well be extinct by the end, or even before the end, of this century. And Conweiser was one of the people trying to inform zoogoers about these magnificent, wonderful creatures and their plight. Sadly, Miss Conweiser was performing basic tasks in the preserve's enclosure with the tigers when a male Malayan tiger lunged at her. She suffered from a severe bite wound from the attack and has since passed away. The tiger in question was calmed down by tranquilizers, but later, and sadly, it was put down. Truly a tragic story, and I have nothing but my condolences to offer to the family and friends of Stacy Conweiser. I can only hope that despite this dreadful incident, there are others who will continue the effort to help preserve these creatures from extinction. I mean, sure, they may be dangerous, and sure, they might seem like the prime example of why nature hates us, and maybe I'm just showing favoritism here, but do you really want to live in a world without tigers? I mean, look at that face! Oh, it's so cute. Okay, last segment for today. Here's a recommendation. This recommendation is a poem, and one that echoes with the theme of today's episode. The poem is called Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. And yeah, I really like this poem, so I'm going to read it. Here goes. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men, who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way, do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men, near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. It's a poem about fighting for what you want, even when what you're up against may seem inevitable. When what you're up against might seem to be insurmountable odds. And it appeals to me and my stubbornness, today more than ever, because though it may seem like all is against me, and even though I have been told by others what I want more than anything else is a pipe dream, and that I should extinguish the light of hope burning within me that someday I'll find that happiness with that person, I will forever rage against the darkness and against the dying of the light. Listeners, feel free to give me your interpretation. Links in the description. Well, that's all for this installment. Before I go, in one of my rarer moments of being stirred up in a fervor, I'd like to send a message to a certain senator from the United States of America, from the small state of Vermont, who this Tuesday, once again, will rage against the dying of the light in the state of New York. To you I say simply, take her down. Anyways, listeners, see you next week. And keep telling yourself, I'm still not dead, so don't bury me yet.
To those who see that by not paying and not giving in, they win. To have no good reason, to no cuts and leisures, and to the confusion of our enemies. Just keep screaming out, I'm still not dead yet. I'm still not dead yet. I'm still not dead yet. I'm still not dead yet.
I'd like to use this moment to thank the wonderful individual who, in their own special way, helped brighten what would have otherwise been an uneventful weekend. Thank you so much.